Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. When it comes to Warzone Season 5, you got a lot of options in terms of what is meta, right? But what if you're looking for weapons that are absolutely going to melt? Today, I got you covered. We are breaking down 5 weapons that have ridiculously fast TTKs. They might not all be top tier meta weapons, but when it comes to pure TTK, very few options are better than these. And of course, if we're talking time to kill, we got to start off with the AS Val. This thing is about as good as it gets. And it's so weird because throughout these various TTK videos that I've done ever since Verdansk, really, the Val has always been a reoccurring weapon. A lot of these weapons get phased in and phased out as adjustments happen, but the Val has never really seen that treatment. It's just always been that top tier solos weapon. It's very niche because of that, not really meta because of that, but the TTK here, absurd. So first up, we got the OSA barrel for the better range and the better velocity. I also like using the tac laser, gives you a better ADS speed. You definitely have to use the 30 round mags. That's the max capacity here, which obviously is why it's so limited to just solos. I feel like you certainly could use an underbarrel here for different situations. Commando is going to be solid for just general recoil. Merc, if you're a bit of a more aggressive player who likes to hip fire some, could be a good option. I feel like Commando is probably the most consistent across the board. Then for your final attachment, you can sort of mess around. I don't think an optic is needed here at all. You could certainly use a stock. The Streetlock's not bad for that better control. The Skelet's also a little bit more aggressive for the ADS and strafe speed. I personally like using that. You could use, though, the Stippy if you wanted to, or Sleight of Hand even as a perk. You certainly got some options, but as far as melting players, the AS Val is one of the best in the business. Oh, and by the way, I have the exact numbers. Completely forgot to mention this at the start of the build, but I've gone through true game data and actually built out all these weapons to find their true TTKs. 700 milliseconds at 40 meters. That's a pretty insane range for that TTK. So this thing up close is incredibly efficient. We also have to talk about the Nikita. This is one of the best hybrid weapons in the game for close and medium range. It has a 680 millisecond TTK up to 44 meters. So a slightly faster TTK and a slightly longer range than the AS Val. Also has a lot more ammo and can be used in more engagements because of that. This is one of the best mid-range weapons in the game. It's got one of the best base ranges that we have out of all the close and medium range hybrid sort of rifles, and it fries. It melts everyone. Such a fun and underrated weapon in my opinion. I mean, this thing is seriously dangerous in the right hands. So first up here, we're going for the MX silencer. I also still like the 613 barrel. We got 3 barrels that basically do the same thing between this one, the sniper, and the precision. It's just a matter of the sniper being the least efficient for all of these and the 613 being the most efficient for all of them, obviously with the cons scaling up as you get to the longer and larger barrels. So just take that into consideration. For the optic here, I like the 2.5. Other players like the slate. Totally just comes down to personal preference there. For the stock, MS is super solid for that better horizontal control. It sort of helps limit that to just vertical, which obviously is super easy to counteract. We got strife angled for basically the same thing there to help out with that horizontal movement. The 60 round drums here, better control, also just a basic extended mag, so that works out really well. We got lengthened for some of those mid-range fights. For the rear grip, I like hatched. You get a little bit of control in both areas. For perk 1 here, you certainly got some options. I feel like Perfectionist is probably the most reliable out of all of them, but Fleet for a super aggressive player, not bad, and Disable gives you that hidden velocity, so all those are super solid. I prefer Perfectionist as mentioned. Perk 2, I go for On Hand for that faster ADS speed. Very dominant gun for mid-range. Now, one you might not have expected to see here, the Whitley, and this thing is absurd. A 700 millisecond TTK at 59 meters, so a much better range than the Nikita and the AS Val. Obviously though, this is an LMG, so it's mainly meant for medium and long range. It's not nearly as aggressive as the 2 previous options, but this thing hits like a truck. It is so strong. And like I said, I don't feel like many people realize just how good the Whitley can be. The downside here though is that the meta magazine is the British 45, and 45 rounds is just not super consistent for squad fights, especially one that's a little bit slower like this. It's a weapon that sort of is hindered because of that, but that's the go-to build right now. We've got the Ragdoll barrel on here actually for the best range possible. The MK9 is decent too, but Ragdoll is going to give you that insane range with that really good TTK. We of course have MX silencer on there. You could go for the 3 to 6, the 2.5 times optic, totally comes down to whatever you're the most comfortable with there. For the stock, I've always been a little bit skeptical about which one is truly the best because you got a lot of good options. EM3 for the initial control, not bad at all. The EK8 for the better strafe speed, also not bad. R4 is the most consistent recoil based one though, and so I feel like if you want to land the shots the easiest, that's going to be your go-to in general. Perk 1 here, we're going to end up going for hard scope for the better control while you're aiming down sights. No conflicts there with the R4 stock. Perk 2 fully loaded to maximize that ammo. We're gonna end up running hatched here as well for the recoil there, just to help minimize that some. We obviously have lengthened on there per usual. And then for the underbarrel, you could go a few different routes. You could go for hand stop if you wanted to, help out a little bit vertical and horizontal. Strife angle's not bad, carver's not bad. It's a little bit of horizontal and vertical in the pattern here, so really any of these are going to work well. But overall, the Whitley is it's strong to say the least, just a little bit awkward to use. Now here's what I know a lot of players are going to be very excited about. We got the Fennec, which got a buff with the season 5 update. It's not a top tier meta SMG by any means. Its damage per mag with the 40 round drums on there is limited with this fire rate, but as far as the TTK, it's spicy. A 650 millisecond TTK up to 20 meters is a pretty impressive range for an SMG. It's also very aggressive with our deadfall barrel on there. Built-in velocity, range, and control. Also keeps us off the map as well. So you got low recoil and a great TTK. It's going to be a very solid SMG when it comes down to it. I also go ahead and throw on the 5 milliwatt laser for that better sprint to fire, makes it a tad bit more aggressive there. We've got the Merc foregrip on here for that better control. Then lastly, I like using sleight of hand because you do run out of ammo so quickly. The only thing I'd say is sort of an alternative for this setup is maybe dropping Merc and adding on the stipple grip tape. If you're comfortable with a little bit more recoil, you could certainly do that. That's more for the higher skill players, though. For a general build, that Merc foregrip setup is probably going to be the most consistent. And then lastly, we got one that kind of blew me away because we've talked about these other TTKs, right? Val 700 milliseconds at 40 meters, the Nikita 680 at 44, the Whitley 700 at 59. Well, then you got the MG82, which for long range does have some recoil. Now it takes some getting used to as far as managing that goes, but after you get past that, you can achieve an ideal perfect TTK of 850 milliseconds at 100 meters. The range on this thing is absurd. Now, of course, that's taking into account perfect accuracy. A realistic TTK is going to be slightly slower than that, but the fact of the matter is the range on the MG82 is almost unbeatable. It's so good. Now, of course, being a Cold War weapon and with the worse recoil pattern, it does steer players away from it, but if you can master this gun, you are going to fry, and I mean that in the most literal sense, right? So we got agency suppressor. You got to use task force here for that best control possible. Also helps out with the range and whatnot. For our underbarrel, we're going to go for field agent. That's going to help out with the control yet again. We got the 3 times optic on here per usual, and then because this is an LMG, you don't necessarily need an extended mag. You might want to use one like 125 would totally be sufficient, but if you want a more aggressive build, you could certainly use something like the Serpent Wrap for a better ADS time. You could use the Raider stock though too for a better ADS firing move speed, and that strafe speed certainly cannot be bad at all. So you could go for that. You could go for an extended mag, just comes down to preference there, but this thing hits, and it hits hard. It's just not the easiest gun to use. But that being said, those are 5 weapons that have ridiculously fast TTKs here in Warzone Season 5. That's gonna wrap things up. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hopefully you learned something new. If you did, let me know by dropping a like on it. And if you're new here, or if you have not already subscribed, every single day I got you covered with the latest news, updates, loadouts, everything going on in COD. You'll find it here, so feel free to hit that sub button and turn on those post notifications. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I will catch you guys later. Peace out.